Hey, I think you guys can hear me and see me. Let me go ahead and pull up a little bit of Nano Banana. It's kind of weird on a live stream. I sort of have to balance. I want to show you guys as much as I can and show off everything that I'm doing, but also, like, I created a thumbnail for this video and I used kind of a method of getting Nano Banana and Midjourney to kind of mix together. So I want to explain sort of how this thumbnail came to be, and then we'll keep playing with this fox and make more and more stuff throughout the stream. So just to kind of give that overview, I started on my GPT and basically asked for a prompt to generate a vector illustration of a fox character. I went into Midjourney and was like, hey, I want that fox character generated. I went back to my GPT and gave it the prompt that I used for the Flash character. I told it which one I picked. And then here on Midjourney, or here on ChatGPT, I asked for a video prompt. It came up with one, but then I was like, I don't actually like how that went. So I uploaded the image as well and then described exactly how the video prompt goes. My GPT isn't super optimized for video yet. So this is still using, I guess, just image concepts with a little bit of clarity about how to write a prompt for video. And then I generated this and I pulled this video out of ChatGPT. If you guys watched my latest video, you'll probably, or out of Midjourney. So this prompt went into here. I used the sitting fox as a starting frame, and then I said smooth tracking animation of this fox moving around and kind of doing his things. I realize I need to have the chat up so I can see if you guys are talking to me, but I do want to kind of finish this overview. Hi, everyone. But yeah, so I took this image, I downloaded it, and I brought it in as a tab, just like I sort of talk about in my latest video where we turn still frames into assets. So we generated those still frames. And in essence, what I found Nano Banana is very good at is relighting and using these images to create precisely what we want. For the thumbnail, I did the sort of simplest and easiest thing to do, which was I asked Gemini here, Nano Banana, to edit my 3 fox stills. So I pulled stills out of here. I sort of picked my favorite frames. I was like, oh, cool. I saved this. I saved the other one, and you can sort of see I have a few saved frames here. And then I downloaded kind of the fox, and that'll remain the thumbnail of this live stream as we kind of go from there. I obviously took this into Photoshop and added my little live logo, and I put the text in a way that I could actually edit the text. I just put it on one line, but this is essentially the concept that came out of this. It looks like I am just, hey, I'm using Gemini to make a thumbnail for me, but I actually think this is a really powerful editor. And if you haven't seen it yet, I kind of want to just give you that overview of if you ask for a very specific edit. So we're sort of starting with this starting frame of a fox and, jumping and say, hey, I want you to keep the composition and the fox the same, but make it nighttime. Nano Banana will do a great job at sort of keeping your character consistent while also editing the image and changing the lighting so that this fox looks like it should and also turns it to nighttime. Midjourney is going to be more aesthetic than Imagen or Nano Banana is by default, but it's quite capable of editing an image, staying in style. Literally, it took the sun and made this the moon. And now we have something that's like relit that we could take to Midjourney and refine, right? So I could say, hey, actually here in this image, over here in Midjourney, I want to make some little changes to make this fox a little bit more clear. And so, hey, this sort of tail doesn't really work that great because video is imperfect. Midjourney doesn't handle this exactly right, but also most of this is just fine. And we could say vector art of fox at night and just clean up these little pieces here and get a really high quality result with a very simple prompt because we did kind of this relighting work in Midjourney or in Nano Banana first, and then Midjourney had like something better to kind of work with. And we sort of take the fox that we really like, and we could come back to Gemini and say, cool, I cleaned that up a bit. Now put a river in the scene too. And my experience is that going sort of as slow as you can with Nano Banana, like one edit at a time, and is sort of the best way to keep character consistency alive and looking as good as you can. Again, this is just a still frame straight out of a video, but here with a little bit of editing, and now this nighttime scene with a river added, like what happens here. And so now we can kind of say, hey, Midjourney, I want to take this image and animate it, right? Or even the other one, right? I don't necessarily need to use the image here, but I could say to my GPT, now animate, right? Now animate this image. And we can sort of continue this video and keep things moving, because this comes from a video, and we sort of get to the part where he is standing this way. I think, I forget exactly. Maybe this frame is flipped. No, it looks like it's about right. So it's probably like over this way, something like this. This is kind of the spot. We could take this video and put it into a video editor, right? And we could say, hey, actually, this video should go here. We should clip it where this ends. And then we can kind of get a seamless from here to here. And then we like switch to nighttime, and it could stay absolutely perfect as we animate this image, right? So we can take this prompt and this starting frame, animate this guy, and we have a seamless, totally different scene with an edited fox that now will look a lot better and a lot cooler. And so like we have so much control in Nano to kind of say, hey, if we keep most of the things the same and edit only the things we care about, we can actually put into these scenes whatever it is we want. And I'm really loving the result here. By the way, I really appreciate everyone who's shown up on the stream. That's sort of the overview of what we're gonna be playing around with today, but feel free to ask any questions you have. I see we have 7 likes already. I like to call out the likes in the stream because it really means the world that you guys have shown up. You've hit the like button, which sort of spreads it to more people. More people find this, more people come. And then, it's sort of, we're all learning together and growing in this AI space. So I think it's very cool and exciting to have you here. I saw a little heart in the chat. That's amazing that you guys can make that happen. Very cute. And an 8th like while I'm talking about it. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks for being here. And I'm excited to see how much we can kind of go through and make happen with this little fox character. If you guys have any ideas, feel free to toss them in the chat. And yeah, it means the world that you're here. Oh my God, 11 likes. It's incredible. I can't just milk that forever, otherwise this live stream won't go anywhere, but we are waiting for this to load. So from my last video, we only had the SD, the standard definition video. I do want to point out that I have turned on the kind of high definition version. So this goes up to 720p. I think it says it's only available on Pro and Mega plans, but I think people can have it. They just like have a warning that it's like you'll use your credits really fast, so it's recommended on only those plans. But you can turn down the video batch size. This is also sort of new since my latest video. And so that means you can spend a little bit more on a good video with a good prompt that you sort of trust is going to turn out right, but do it in high definition. And then I think the cost comes out to pretty similar. I think high definition is a little more expensive than several videos on standard definition, but I'm thinking that's very cool. So with a little bit of Nano Banana, a little bit of GPT prompt writing, and a little bit of AI video, we have control to kind of continue what we've done into like from one scene to the next. And I think we're going to create a little vignette, a little story of this fox as he roams through this kind of cute little world that I've got going on. We're nearly there. I just want to play around a bit. Can you make it winter and sunset without changing the fox at all. I really think that if you tell it, if you give it an image that has the thing you want in it and you tell it to kind of make one change that doesn't both move your character and change the lighting, you can get a lot of pretty impressive things, right? So we can kind of do this first and we get the winter sunset scene. And then we also, so it sort of like moves this and changes this winter sunset. We even have our stream. Now take away the stream and have the fox face straight ahead, right? And this keeps the style intact because we're only doing one thing, but we want to be looking straight sort of, or have the camera facing straight at the fox. And I think we're going to get a good result out of this while we wait for our video to finish, which does kind of happen. It's a little slow. So we've sort of gone into this slow motion, which will probably seem a little silly in here. So if we took this into our video, we kind of like see this connection and he's running and he's running and he's now switching, which I think is cool, but the like speed of things doesn't make any sense. So I'm just gonna like speed this up to maybe 250%. That's sort of my instinct based on what I saw. And so now we have this fox that is running, and then we kind of have both of these things. So I'm doing a little speed ramp, and then because he stops there, I'm probably gonna take that frame and keep going with something else. And so we could start from like just another scene here, right? And now take this image, and I think I'm still gonna take it to Midjourney again and edit it just a touch. But again, we can be very like polite with the edit. Don't change too much. And so we have a full resolution Gemini result. I can take out the watermark, which is gonna like give me that, you know, I don't need Gemini to have credit. I'll make it clear that it's AI to my community if anyone ever sees this video we're making. But we can kind of erase the things that don't really match our design. I don't think he's supposed to have a white, we can look up here, maybe a little bit of white cap. Yeah, he does. So that is kind of how he looks. So I'm actually gonna bring that back. That's real. I might make it a little smaller or allow Midjourney to make it a little smaller. But I think that's a cute little change. Fox in winter at sunset vector art. Right, we sort of refine this with even a very simple prompt here and continue generating. Hi, Michael, Mikkel. Welcome to the chat. It's amazing. I absolutely agree. I think it's kind of mind-blowing how quickly this kind of appeared and how high quality it is with sort of the right workflow that you're piecing into it. I think there's kind of some messy things that you can do with it that aren't as, you know, that are dynamic but a little bit different. But I think just kind of a straightforward, hey, I have this consistent character, I'm working with them, but now I want to do something else. Let's kind of take this as a starting frame. Let's generate a video prompt and kind of get something together. I want him this scene to leap right at the camera, and I want him in this scene to leap right at the camera and then over the camera in the tracking shot so I can see underneath him. Right, and so now we have our fox being animated in this moment, like in this way, that I just need to create this prompt here that oh, that's so weird. I don't know why. It was just invisible. ChatGPT, get it together with a refresh. There you go. And so now in Midjourney with this prompt, we can cut to here. And we have our little video sort of started. He starts moving, and it's nighttime, which is sort of fun, but that's a little funky. I think it just needs to, I think that's still smooth. It just needs to kind of render all those frames. still a little neat that we sort of have that much control that seems almost seamless as we watch it in action. And now a cut, so this won't line up perfectly anymore, but we should still be able to kind of use it to get this effect. Pretty neat. All right, where is this coming along? So if we have this sort of leaping forward and over the camera vibe, we might want to switch to a leaping shot to work with from the side. So now, can we see this scene from the side and just have, Nano Banana take all of this color and all of this lighting and all of this fox and see it from that kind of side angle. And I think it should be sufficient to literally turn our fox in this way. I have tried using, like, this is on Google Gemini, so I'm talking to kind of the pro version of Gemini here, and you can see this is like where you might find Nano Banana at the moment. I have tried Whisk too, but it doesn't seem like it has Nano Banana yet for whatever reason. I'm not sure kind of like why that happens or what that is, but now we have our fox that was from the front, also from the side. Can you make him jumping? Again, I'm doing kind of one edit at a time. I think that's the best way to ensure that it doesn't lose the beautiful stylistic attempt at kind of creating these. But I also, the sun shouldn't be visible from this angle. So take it out and just have sky. Can you also make him jumping now from this angle? I realize these prompts that I generated for you, I'm just like reading while things are generating, and I realized that this one and this one sort of went in slow motion like that, and I think part of that is because these are describing a single image again, even though I had it sort of explain and figure out a video prompt to kind of make this happen. So what I'm going to do is rewrite this as another smooth animation tracking shot like the one before. Describe the motion. And what I sort of write in this way, be sure to describe the background in detail too. Consider that he starts. Yeah, so let me put most of this in. Describe the motion. Consider where he is in the starting frame. And now we can send this off too for a higher quality prompt to work with. Because I'm just thinking the slow motion effect, if it happened once just by sort of randomness, because I don't have this kind of like high video batch size, which I'm also willing to do for this stream, not so big a deal. But I think the prompt should be good enough if it writes it in the way that we really need. So now we can take this leaping shot and do something very similar. Again, I might remove the watermark and show off the side. Game over. Yeah, it's pretty impressive, isn't it? It's pretty capable at creating some really useful things. And now this image and starting frame is incredibly useful compared to what we had before. I'm really loving the results. And so this was sort of the slow motion one that we had with a image prompt, right? So this is essentially Midjourney's like automatically animate button. If we just clicked like low motion or high motion, I guess this would have been low by default because I think that's how I have it set. Or are we not using those terms here anymore? Not sure. Yeah, low by default. But hopefully this video prompts improves. And now we'll kind of have another thing to use. Though this is still pretty, especially if you sort of start in motion, still a pretty cool image to kind of bounce with here. So the very beginning is a little rough, but starting on this one, still an impressive switch from day to night. Some things, I think that's just needs rendering. Yeah. And pull up what we've done from here. So I think we edited something that we can download and animate. Another cool tracking shot as he runs. Or as she runs, which is what ChatGPT thinks the character is. I realize, well, we jumped up to 21 likes. Thank you all again for liking the video. I appreciate every single one of you who've hit that button. It means the world. As this continues going, I think we can keep playing with this Fox character and move them around. I think having a good video prompt definitely helps a lot. So we can take our edited starting frame that doesn't have Gemini's logo, animate it with the thing that our GPT wrote, and generate from here. And now we have another kind of cool and different scene that we get to play with. And so here we can kind of get another potential, and maybe it's worth generating more. So I've started doing that because I think the results are just a little bit too wild with the prompts that we're writing, but we can have little clips that are working fairly well. I don't think we need to worry too much. And getting a side shot is cool. That lets us sort of, and even I wonder what the top down might look like from here, right? Try a beautiful, so this is Nano Banana again, try a beautiful top down shot of the fox. All your Midjourney tips are very useful, thanks. I really appreciate that, thank you. Yeah, all it takes really is kind of this, a lot of experimentation that I gotta play with. Like, even these videos are a little bit unreliable, but sort of learning what the prompts are, what to take, what to ask different GPTs for to kind of get what we have. I found it's been, really interesting to follow and watch. And, I think sort of a simple cycle like this where a character is just running to the side is going to be a little easier for it to do than something a little wild of it jumping over a character, over the camera. But it's definitely fun to play around with. And I appreciate having you guys watching the stream while I experiment a little with this new tool we get. Love to play with the new stuff. Here's what a top down shot might look like. Can we be closer to the ground? Yeah, I know it's not so easy. There's so much. There's so many things to kind of track. Can we be closer to the ground? So I'm just continuing to talk to ChatGPT here. I realize, is there a... I think there's a button I can do to text to type, or talk to type, which might be a little bit easier as far as like slowing down the live stream. But I think this is neat to have, and going from this one to another shot on the side that really feels like the same scene is really beautiful. Because I wonder if we can take this and use it as the start and put an ending frame that was something like Gemini's like running straight at it. I know it's not perfect, so here, let me give it a little bit more data. So this is close, but it doesn't look enough like my fox. So can you integrate your new scene with my character I am uploading? I suggest you to make a movie like Flow in AI. I'm not sure I'm familiar with... Oh, yes, I see. Yeah, I think I'm somewhat familiar with that. I just had to be reminded. But yeah, I think it's an interesting project. I think AI is only so capable still. I think there's a lot of iterations, even as we're doing these. But I think it definitely helps with consistency to kind of, be able to... Yeah, this looks, it's not really able to upload this one, and so we kind of have to jump back to this stage. And maybe if I edit this here, do you think it works to create a 2D sprite sheet for game dev? It seems like this is pretty capable, right? It's like these are quite possible of at using something like this, animating it, and then saving those assets to build a sprite sheet. Like especially if you're willing to kind of use one of these, right? You can kind of turn this into each of the frames and edit them almost individually, right? It's like, hey, this is looking really good. What's wrong with it? And you can kind of make a change, make a little bit of refinement. But even with like, what is the highest quality version of the image? Download this and like piece these together, right? And it's like, okay, cool. I like this here. I like this frame here. I need this in my sprite sheet. Let's use this running frame as part of an animation. So save video frame as, we can kind of have this and use it later on. And now having Nano Banana as a way to kind of refine this. So, can I see this pose from the front? And just talk to Nano Banana to regenerate that. I'm also so impressed right now. We have 28 viewers and 28 likes. I don't know how each and every single one of you found it in your hearts to hit the like button, but it means the world. Wowee. But you know, if you're able to kind of turn something around and use it and use each frame that you want, like I can in here just click my arrow and go one frame over, and like it seems super doable to turn this into an animation that looks really, really careful. Yeah, it looks awesome to prototype stuff and then have a basic art direction. It seems like a great way to kind of like get started in that project. I absolutely agree. I'm more focused on photorealism, but I was playing with Midjourney and Nano Banana the last few days, and I have to say that grabbing stills from a generated video makes sense as part of the technique. Then yeah, so I think what needs to happen in order to get, you know, great, highly photorealistic things to start with is you're probably going to need to take a video out of Midjourney and upscale it. You just need more pixels. Like and you know, Midjourney's upscaler just turns things a little too plasticky. But if you're going in that photorealistic direction, you probably need, and I tend to, I'm not sponsored by these guys or anything, but I tend to jump into the, you know, I have an open art subscription and they have a bunch of like here video upscalers. So you can upscale your entire video at once and work from that video and then take frames from the thing that is already upscaled and high resolution of your character. And I think you'll have a little bit easier time. Then you better pay an artist to make it, I guess. Yeah, you know, I think like game dev is a huge task, and I think there's lots of creativity that goes into it from every direction. And if AI can help you kind of get closer to the game you have in mind, I think that's awesome. I think there's different schools of thought on it, and I think some people don't really want games with any AI in it at all, and some people are absolutely fine with it, and it's about how fun the game is. And I think it's a mix and a balance, and it's what you have in your budget. You know, not everyone can afford to pay an artist, but they do still have an idea for a game, and I think AI can be useful for that. Yes, Encore seems to be the best for skin textures. I have to try that too. Yeah, so if you can find an upscaler that's good, I think Midjourney is great at staying in style and on color. So I use this Fox example right now, and I've used a bunch of sort of complicated examples here. Is going to be a bunch of stylized examples, whether I've done kind of like, hey, it's these people, Midjourney's way of animating like a doodle. It's going to be better at, rather than sort of puppet warping, which a lot of other video models do, Midjourney will kind of like keep this doodle as a character. When you get to kind of photorealism, a lot of models are pretty good. Midjourney, I did a live stream a while back. I forget the, it was like rainbow. No, it was like tech. I had like a tech color video example that was sort of photorealistic, but it was like a stylized lighting effect. And I'm not sure exactly what it was here, but it's like this kind of thing where you have something photorealistic, but very unique. Midjourney is able to keep that uniqueness alive better than a lot of other models. But if you're just looking for photorealism, I think Kling is really powerful. I think Hailuo Minimax has some good options for you. And then kind of the video side of things is going to be, I'm still looking for, yeah, that was, I've done a lot of experiments on this thing. I have a billion images here. It's my dog. Cute. Let's see, where were we in our Fox generation? Yeah, so we got sort of a straight shot approach again, which obviously looks a little bit better. Now lift the camera up a bit so we are looking down on the Fox. But I find open art is a nice way to have access to a lot of these, like, there's just so many different models and so many different things to keep track of and buy subscriptions for. And it's nice to have sort of one, and I'm not sure OpenArt is the only example. I think there's plenty to kind of play with, but having one subscription that gives you access to a bunch of the video models lets you sort of test that out and sort of say, hey, when do I want this? When do I want this? When do I want this? And if I have, for example, a video model and an image that or text that I want to start with, and I want to pick the model I want to use, there's like a billion here, and obviously a billion's a stretch, but there's a bunch that you can sort of try without needing to get a subscription to Pika and a subscription to like all of these different things in order to kind of use them and try them out. And only once you sort of know what you like, it can make sense to kind of keep going. But I do think this is lovely. And so kind of to go from one of these, or I would probably grab this one, add it to my little video. Just a little bit sped up to have it match. Is a little bit of a silly effect, but I'm still impressed with how well it works. I feel like I should cut this little bit off, even though it doesn't align perfectly. The motion feels a little bit more fluid. And maybe not even start from sitting, starting from like one of these moments just is a little bit cleaner as an effect. And then kind of the motion just feels a little bit cleaner as you kind of run through things. And even just like jumping. I know it's early, but I feel like if this was a YouTube short, you kind of want to have all of these little cuts, and this isn't the same, but you sort of have just a bunch of montagey things that feel like a consistent character. I think that's sort of what you want out of these, at least what I would want out of these in the moment. And so now as we sort of play around, just to sort of show what I was talking about, of like, you get much more stylized video that feels the same. They're not moving too much, but at least it's sort of staying. I have sort of the prompt that I use on my website for, hey, I actually want to animate this character in a very specific way. So let me turn this prompt into, or this character into a, let me download this, use it in ChatGPT, into a certain number of assets. And you could do something like an orbit fully around this character's head, right? And then having something to later to give to NanoBanana, or having something later to give to put these characters into scenes that feel right, even in this very stylized way, seems really cool to me. And I realize I should be on my GPT, who will know how to create this scene, not just in ChatGPT here. And now we can put it's just going to be a better prompt because my GPT knows a certain amount about prompt writing, and then I've given it, as a way to extend that knowledge, details on how that should actually look. And now we have sort of fully written thing here. And now this image will make for a better prompt here to get kind of that full orbit. Lift the camera up. Meant lift the camera up. I think ChatGPT will figure it out, or Gemini will figure it out. Nano Banana will know what to do. This is obviously about keeping the scene the same, but the power of this is being able to control the scene and change the lighting without losing the character that you've kind of worked on. And I think that's the reason this is kind of incredible and new, is that ChatGPT's image model and a bunch of these previous image models could get kind of close without actually doing the thing. I think this is just zoomed out and not really zoomed up. And so maybe this is a problem that video will have to solve and not really image, right? So I could say, hey, use this image and bring the camera up so we are above the fox while it walks. I'm going to say runs. While it runs down the path. And so now this prompt being sort of a clear, easy to follow way to describe this character moving in this overhead chase. And yeah, these are the orbits that are coming along. But what we really want, and I think we grabbed one from Gemini, but I think in essence, this prompt here, we can clean it up just a little bit before we go crazy. And I may, go ahead and save this, upscale it. Or I guess I don't really need to upscale it because it's all 720p. But with that done, I meant to erase that too. With that done, we have some pretty impressive results. That we can animate on the Create tab. And continue playing with. So this kind of creates the orbit that we can use in a couple situations if we need it, right? And so let's say we want this angle. Download here. I should probably download raw, but NanoBanana as a way to say, hey, this is the frame, say video frame as, this is the frame that I want to work with. And now just make a new chat for a little bit as I play around with this. Now I want to say, hey, put this guy without changing him at all in a stylized background. He should be in his messy room, drawn in the same colored pencil style. And having him in the scene that we can use that was from the video at the angle that we wanted, now this scene is pretty capable of drawing out a messy room for him to be in. And now I can say, hey, the parts of the image where it doesn't match are seeping through. Can you clean up the edges of the character? Right, so I literally told him to change nothing, and there are like parts it decided to erase out there. So I'm like, hey, clean that up. And it's now a little bit cleaner, maybe. And if I told it to do it again with this frame, whereas if you go too much, if you try to change the lighting and change his pose and like maneuver things, I find you lose character consistency. So being able to tie this into the method we described in the last video, I find helps get a consistent character that feels real, right? Like this is animated in a way that we don't really love, right? It looks almost too Disney or too Pixar. Whereas if we're able to put a starting frame or put an asset in and then work on the background from that, we have a little bit more control to create the thing that we want. And so I think that's a nice way to kind of achieve a particular look. And obviously doing it with our fox is especially powerful, right? Turn this fox without changing him so that he is on a boat in the ocean. The N key on my keyboard is a little bit messed up, so I type it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, 6, 7, 8, 9. It doesn't always work, which is a little sad. It sometimes works. I can type the letter N if I get lucky, but you see that typo coming up again and again. But now we have sort of an exact fox in style, whereas if we had changed the lighting and the pose and everything, it starts to get a little messy. But now it's like not too hard to take away the sail and make the boat bigger. And being able to build a world in this way seems really powerful in my eyes. And so now, like I think there is just 1 or 2 starting frames that met my desires here. Maybe in all of these. You can see there's some cool ones here, right? So even though it like cuts or gets confused, like that's still a pretty cool ending shot for our fox character moving around. I really don't mind that in the little montage we're building. So I am going to piece it in here, even though I'm not using the beginning at all. And really, those 2 at the beginning aren't that useful for this particular montage, but we could imagine, right? And so if we sort of like bring them in later, right, we could sort of imagine a dip to black, and have these kind of come back in a new way that we can use that is a little bit more fun. And I forget how much we can use here, but we can kind of have consistent characters that we can have show up even potentially on this boat. And continue playing around with. And I find it fun to sort of piece these together and build something that we can use out of them. So now there's still a pretty high quality. I think I want to kind of get rid of the sun here. I want to get rid of the little logo again, but now fox on a boat. And we have control in Midjourney to mess around with something like this too, right? So we could say, hey, this is good, except, right, we want this boat to look a little bit different or the fox to be a little bit smaller, right? So one could, on this bottom part, kind of erase the fox out. And then on the top image, smart select the fox and say, hey, what I really want to do is erase the background here and scale the fox down so we have something that's a little bit closer to our goal. I'm going to turn off the smart select. It's a little bit closer to sort of the size of fox we'd want to work with. And I could kind of paint some pieces back in because that actually doesn't really matter how that looks around the edges and I don't want to get it wrong. But now fox on a boat can look even simpler, but it knows what it looks like because we have the context of the fox in here, we have the context of our scene, and the style all sort of sorted out. There shouldn't be room, so we should kind of like erase things so there's not room to put another fox in an ugly way in here. But it shouldn't be too hard to even turn this into cute vector scene and refine those things a little bit without having to rewrite a complicated prompt. And so it shouldn't know anything about a fox in here. I don't know why it came up with that. Well, one could. Clean it up even more on my tool and just say, hey, I want to take this image here, work on this part, come back to Midjourney and say, hey, I want this fox. Scene of a fox on a boat. In the ocean. And it should just be showing that because we're zoomed in, but it's doing it again. That's crazy. That's spending so much effort putting that in there. Just a little bit. Little more natural now. Gives us something that seems a little nicer. And I can take this back. I should probably put it back in the original image. So I should come back to my tool and just clean it up a little bit, getting wild foxes in place. But now we can see our original image is fixed and resolved. And so I can accept that change. And now we have a full image of a fox in this scene that we can download and bring into Gemini, for example. No, we want to bring it into ChatGPT to zoom in while the fox curls up and lies down in the boat. And so now that we have this more refined image, we should be able to get a nice video out of our fox riding a boat and create a cool little thing going on here. And yeah, turning this into a movie might be complex, right? So it's like it's a lot of work to do things as simple as like get behind our fox character as they're running, right? And it like doesn't necessarily work perfectly if you're sort of in this third person view, but with some time and energy and work, being able to talk to something like Nano Banana and say, hey, this fox needs to first, like, oh, I want to put a stream under him, or I want to turn it into winter, or have him walk straight towards the camera, or have him walk to the side. That amount of control really makes it easier to keep going. If you try to do too much at once, we do still see problems and you sort of lose character consistency, but sort of starting again with a fresh scene seems like a nice way to kind of bring things back. And we're able to generate our boat scene that I think is pretty cool and continue our nice little montage of our character running through and being somewhat consistent in style and traits so that we can change all these things and like keep them moving in the ways that we might want them to. And I think that's pretty cool that we have that level of control, and putting our sort of boat scene into there as well seems powerful too. I'm really liking the results. So thank you so much. We hit 32 likes on the video. Thank you, every one of you who have gone ahead and hit that like button. That's so cool. And yeah, if any of you have questions about what I'm doing here, like how things are looking or what you might do in a particular situation, happy to kind of talk through any of that. It's fun having you guys on the stream. And I think we're making some cool progress playing around with these. I'm loving the character control. I think it's challenging still. I don't think it solves every problem. And it seems like sometimes Nano Banana just doesn't do it. And maybe that means I need more complicated or more thoughtful prompts when I ask for particular things. But it's looking pretty impressive as we bounce through here. So I'm loving these orbiting shots. Probably while the fox is spinning around too. It just looks great. I'm glad I made him smaller in the boat. I do wonder, I have not played around much with switching from one scene to another, right? So if I have a starting frame like this, and obviously this is extreme. Actually, let's do a non-extreme one. Put an ending frame to the side and orbit while the fox runs. Simple prompt. I'll turn motion higher because I think we trust that it'll stay consistent because we've sort of put the starting and ending frame in there. And I think both of these, almost in their entirety, came out of Nano Banana. Obviously, I edited out the watermark in Midjourney, but other than that, things stayed kind of the same. Let's take a look at these. I love the way the geometry kind of worked itself out. What about the process for bringing another character into a scene and maybe having them interact? Yeah, I think that would actually be pretty straightforward. So if we generated another kind of character for this, so maybe even, right, a vector art of a silver fox, right? So if we even kind of said, hey, I want to a bright silver fox character. I feel like orange might show up a few times. So I'm just going to read through this prompt quickly. White tipped bushy tail, small paws behind it, soft gradients, tilted head. I don't know, there's not too much color going on. So if we sort of generate another, oops, let's cancel that and just generate a regular image out of them. Yeah, sort of getting mid frames out of these is cool, but I'm kind of looking to get an animated, another fox in kind of the same style that we're able to keep using. And so maybe it's this one, right? So we can kind of download this character and we say, hey, Nano Banana, it seems like what I really want is this character and this character, for example. Can you put the other fox on the boat too? I think Nano Banana is designed, as they say, to work with up to 3 different images. Does it tell you that here? And so now we kind of have both of these going on, right? And so one could get these both to animate, right? And then we would have a scene with the 2 foxes together on the boat, for example, right? So we could kind of say, hey, this video of 2 foxes one standing on the bow. And I think that sort of lends itself to being able to talk about both of these 2 things. And now taking this full-sized image and working on it as a starting frame. Again, we could sort of improve that image first, but I think naturally in a video where these 2 foxes are sharing the boat, something is going to happen that'll involve them looking like they're interacting a little bit. And it just seems simpler than sort of what I described before as, hey, I would like to erase the background from this and move him on to here, to be able to kind of explain to Nano Banana what the goal of this is and then build that scene first. It just gets us a better starting place, and then animating the scene as sort of a second order generation to then have higher quality stills to pull, or even using this scene as a way to animate, I think can get a lot done. And so I am liking the results from this perspective. And I don't think 2 characters even change the process very much at this point, which really is kind of the exciting thing, right? Is like 2 characters is almost no harder than 1 character. These 2 foxes will naturally interact just because the video is being generated. And obviously we could see that, this is a sort of a low prominent scene. And so we could kind of do a higher prominent scene and we could generate a prompt that talks about both characters, right? So if we build one of these into a video and take the result and then say, hey, Gemini, now from this starting frame, this is what I want the characters to do now that we're sort of closer up and it feels a little bit more natural. Or let's say we could do, hey, these 2 foxes sitting behind or hiding in the woods together being all sneaky. So we could sort of use these to create a new scene now that we kind of have two characters in this style. And I think in one go, we can get them just in the scene that we've described. But we could be a little bit more explicit and kind of build the scene in steps if this is too much for the characters to stay in style, right? So honestly, this seems pretty fine to me. I think the style has changed a little from one to the next, but looks pretty good. To be like they are in a stalking stance. Something like that to be as sneaky as possible. But it seems like it's as easy as that in this mode, right? It just like beats omnireference to such an incredible degree to be able to say, hey, this character. And if I wanted them, sort of pick a wild scene, right? Okay. Now put them in this scene without changing the foxes at all. And this obviously doesn't make any sense. There's no reason they would need to be in this sort of stylized comic book thing, but it seems like it'll do whatever kind of the Photoshop thing you would ask for. And, hey, it puts the foxes in the room in like it doesn't make any sense and doesn't look great, but, now relight them. So it makes a bit more sense. I think this is the speed to take Nano Banana at. And we can kind of see the videos as they come together. So far, this fox was just kind of standing pretty still. They ate special mushrooms, maybe. Yeah, like whatever, right? Is like whatever your idea is. It seems willing to kind of like do the thing and keep them in style to some degree. And it just kind of works, right? You say the thing you ask for and it's not 100% perfect, but you can kind of work your way up to any particular goal. And so if I were like, hey, what I really want now is, let's use this fox. And I need a new scene like this one. This one made out of construction paper. Same pose, but this time he's in a bank. And this was like, that was a hard challenge for me to do in Midjourney, right? It's like, hey, this is a fox standing in a place in a particular pose. And now it's like, hey, I want this same fox, a new scene like this one. Again, my N key is messing up, but it just seems like in one shot, again, haven't tried this before, but in one shot, we're going to be able to get a result that is sort of precisely the thing we asked for. And so now he's in a bank, and lo and behold, his like magnifying glass works, and the shadow works, and like everything feels right. Take out the lamppost. Those don't go in a bank. And so now we have like a scene in a bank where the fox is like this. And once we have that, we can think about reposing him or generating video to repose him. And it seems like perfectly capable at doing all of that. I don't know. I'm really loving the results out of this. And it's like not everything is absolutely right, but oops. lost his arm in magnifying glass. So, maybe what we decide is like that fix is not something for Nano Banana to do. And actually, right, the fact that it doesn't in paint and mask is a problem. So what I really should do is erase things that I want erased and leave things that I don't want erased. And obviously this is going to be more precise when this is the sort of thing I want. And so now fox in a bank. Construction paper. I must have left a little something towards the bottom. So Midjourney came up with it, but still easy enough to keep erasing. And now it's a clean scene that was exactly what we had asked for. This is also going to be something that Nano Banana will be able to improve on and refine, right? So if I was to be like, you know what, this isn't actually the pose I want anymore, but again, I'm only changing one thing at a time to keep the character as accurate as possible. We can say, hey, pose him so that he is looking for clues closer to the ground. And I get impatient, but Nano Banana is kind of incredibly fast even on its own, right? It's like, it seems that quick. So this is going to be the model to use when you want to relight something, when you want to change the background but don't want to erase all these little fine details, when you want to repose something without losing things, just not do all those things at once. And you have some really incredible capabilities to keep the background the same and get a new scene. Right? Now keep this pose, but create him outside at night. Like, isn't this beautiful that you're able, like, what an incredible result, right? It's like, it's not just, yeah, it's my fox, but bending down, but is actually like, it's figured out what this costume design is and how his tail works and how his hat looks in 3D to be able to tilt it forward and have it cover his eyes as he's looking this way. And there's no way OmniReference could ever get a result like this, but also it's like, ChatGPT would have rebuilt this entire scene. We would have lost so many of the details that were kind of beautiful. Instead, we have, this ability to like keep things the same, keep the hat the same, but relight it to outside at night looking for clues and, repose now, right? Like now have him stand tall with incredible posture. And so that was real time. I obviously waited in the silence for a while. And so now here we've lost some of the, right? So like we've moved pose and changed style. And so what we really need to do is take this guy, right? Or take this frame and probably in a new chat, we should go back and download the result. But could you create this character outdoors at night? And get a higher quality reference for what it should look like in construction paper. Because the longer this chat goes, the sooner you sort of lose that, character consistency that's so important. But now that we have this, one could animate it, or one could say, hey, I want the scene behind him to look more like it is made out of construction paper. Hey, use Nano Banana and free pick. It's in almost every platform, and it's free now. And the execute the prompt end time so you get more chances to obtain the result you want would help. Yeah, I think that's absolutely a good help in this prompt. I think because it has reference this one, we sort of lose the construction paper look to it. Unfortunately, it just like looks a little bit too animated. But yeah, I think rerolls is a great way to do it. Yeah, they have Google has an API, so all of these different places, OpenArt, FreePick, any of them are likely going to start using or likely have Nano Banana if they don't already. Hey, Lewis, nice to see you. Fun to have you on the stream. Yeah, but and I think definitely rerolls are a great way to get more and clicking again. I just think, you also care about sort of the context it has beforehand, and to be able to talk to it between each reroll can sometimes help, right? So it's sort of that balance of how long you're willing to wait, how many you want to have, and depending on the cost, right? So it may be free on free pick. It may cost a certain number of credits in certain places. So that's sort of the balance, the things that I think about when I'm deciding, hey, should I do rerolls? I felt here was the place to show it off because obviously Google created it, and I think they're going to implement it in their chat interface sort of the way it's designed. And maybe there's better approaches, but I think this is kind of the way that I'm going to have the best luck testing it. But yeah, I think we found some cool ways to kind of control these things, and taking like our two foxes in the boat and describing or getting to sort of a starting frame that feels right, and then getting a prompt to sort of say, hey, this is, I'm not going to grab a screenshot, I'm going to save a frame. This is kind of, now write a similar prompt, but describe both foxes, and instead of zooming in, track the boat so it stays centered in the frame. And being able to mix and match between video and image in Nano Banana and in Midjourney, I think gives me the level of control that I'm looking for. Being able to kind of talk to actors like a director, and also talk to Nano Banana like a director and say, hey, have him sit on the ground here, disheartened. Kind of a really cool way to get a result. The convenience on having multiple tools on single platforms is appealing to me. You have subscriptions to OpenArt and Kriya and Night Cafe, along with the usual Midjourney, OpenAI, and Udio. Yeah, I find that handy. I'm not sure. Yeah, so I don't subscribe to quite that many, but just because I think it's just too many subscriptions to kind of keep track of. And so having one that touches all of these different tools and lets you sort of play around with them, and then having a favorite tool like Midjourney, and ChatGPT and Gemini, I find is nice for my experience. So I have OpenArt and I have those three, and it helps me kind of jump to OpenArt when I'm curious about something new that isn't on one of these other platforms. But OpenArt is pretty reliable at adding most of what they have. Again, not sponsored or anything. I don't have an affiliate, but if that's sort of like what you're looking for when, hey, it seems like there's so many subscriptions and so many things to kind of think about, getting someplace that like has every single video model that you could want to use and sort of say, hey, do I want to try Kling? Do I want to try VEO? Do I want to try C-Dance or Vidu or Pixverse or Pika or any of these different models, WAN 2.1? I get to do that and not pay a ton of different people a ton of different subscriptions. And so I find that's a nice thing to kind of make happen and to build our scenes with, hey, this is sort of a little bit of a zoom in while they're riding the boat. And then once we found the frame that is kind of useful, what's your opinion on free pick? I have seen free pick and haven't really thought it was worth subscribing to personally. But again, I've really focused a lot of my time and energy really mastering Midjourney because I think that its aesthetics are higher quality than a lot of the other generation models that I could work with. And so I think this is a really nice way to define and control scenes and using using Nano Banana is really lovely as a way to kind of hey, I like this, except I want this, but I don't want you to sort of redefine the style for me. Whereas, and I just think Midjourney, when it's generating new images, gets better styles than anything else. And so that's kind of where I'm sitting in that way. Maybe Gemini, it's better because it can keep some context from previous instructions. I think that's nice. I think it's sort of cool to have that chat interface, but it's not super clear to me that beyond the language model there is much. It sort of seems like it just kind of knows what you just uploaded or what it just generated, and I think it only handles as an input 3 images. So if you do more than that, it can kind of be too much to concern yourselves about. I'm curious while I'm here. That's one that I already had. But if I took this thing and then said, hey, can you fix the magnifying glasses so they all look semi transparent? Agree, Midjourney does have a nice aesthetic. You just don't like the you call ridiculously harsh censorship. Yeah, I think any company is going to have to draw the line somewhere. They don't want to be responsible for they don't want to be responsible for someone creating revenge porn, anything awful like that. And they don't want to be responsible for rigging elections, and they don't want to get sued by Disney, which seems happened to Midjourney anyway. So, I think all these companies are going to have to draw a line. If they're based in some far off country, it's a little bit easier for them to not be worried about that sort of thing, because it's hard to hold people liable and things like that. But I don't know, I find I can do most of the things that I'm trying to in Midjourney if I write a prompt well enough and it's sort of clear that I'm not trying to go off the rails. And, I just think aesthetically it makes some really impressive results. But it can be hard to kind of like find that balance, and it's sort of up to each company individually. And you're sort of like, hey, if that bugs you too much, then maybe free pick, maybe even just like open art is the place to be, so that you don't have to like fight those guardrails as you're trying to do whatever project it is that you have going on. I am just looking for some more images to play with at this point. You tried to create a guy picking his nose and they censored that. Yeah, it's like when you have a sort of silly example like that and it doesn't seem like it should, right? It's like, hey, I just want to do something silly with AI. And it's like, no. But then it's like, okay, do you really want someone to be able to, and I know picking his nose is a little bit silly, but it's like, oh, do you want to be able to create something embarrassing about any person you upload, right? If it's a video, you can upload any image in the world. And if it's like, some kid bullying some other kid because they uploaded their picture and it's like, oh, I caught him picking his nose, but it's really just AI. And suddenly you're like, they have to make a line somewhere. And I think they probably, they probably find that there are false positives, things they flag that they wouldn't necessarily need to, but it's a challenging balance to find. And having AI do it for you when it is that challenging balance is even tougher, right? You don't have people saying, is this one good, is this one fine, is this one a problem? It just has to like work every time and not have problems. I agree. I have a background image inside a tunnel and I want to rotate 360 degrees while the camera looks off. What keywords or prompts should I use? Let's see if I can find a tunnel in something I've done. Sure, we can kind of. Let's take something like this and just like take the person out. Long, empty photo of a tunnel. I find what sort of needs to happen. My N key is messing me up. What sort of needs to happen is you want to describe all the things that you want to see. So I like the word orbit for getting a 360 because I think it's helpful to kind of inspire that to happen. But if you really want to kind of see the side of the tunnel, right? Because, presumably the front and the back will kind of look the same, right? But if you want in the video for a while to see the side, you would say something like animate manually and then reference footage of a 360 degree rotation orbit viewing the tunnel, starting long and empty, then and video is a little more complicated, right? Because when you have video, you have like the motion of the camera, you have the motion of the scene, and you have, the motion of any particular thing that you might see, right? So I sort of need to describe in general what it is I'm trying to look at. And naming it reference footage, I think, gives it an excuse to be empty, which I think is somewhat helpful, right? So this doesn't need to be complicated footage. I'm looking to pull starting frames from this, of a 360 orbit viewing the tunnel from every angle or something like that, right? Every angle. Starting long and empty, the camera rotates until we see the side of the tunnel. The side is flat, made of concrete, and reflects. Depends which way you want to go, right? What do I have to describe the reflection of? I wanted to reflect pink light if I want to turn this way. I wanted to reflect blue light if it goes this way. So let's say reflects pink light from the pink lights at the top of the wall. And so it's like hard. It's not a keyword. It's sort of describing all of these pieces. I'm gonna try both high and low motion for you because I think it could go either way for this. I think most things aren't moving. The lights at the top of the wall remain solid and only pulse slightly with energy. So again, we're naming this, or we're writing this prompt in a way where we're naming all the pieces about what would be visible in the frame, right? And so because I want the little bit of ground, probably, right? Oops. This may work, but the ground under the wall flex light off the asphalt. And we can kind of play with it in that direction, right? It's like, okay, I've named this, I've named this, I've named this. Pipes on the ceiling remain still, turning as the camera does. So continuing to describe this orbit. And then eventually the tunnel appears on the other side, completing the orbit. And since that one was on motion high, we will try motion low. So let's turn this on, drag this here, oops. Drag this into starting frame, turn the motion to low, and generate this from here too. Do you have a Pro or Mega plan subscription to Midjourney? Yesterday I was tempted to upgrade to Mega, but that heavy hand of censorship gave me hesitation not to pull the trigger. I do subscribe to a Mega. Essentially, this YouTube channel has become kind of my job and the things I do around it, and so I generate enough. Once I've written this, can I generate in the prompt? Yeah, you may have to rewrite it. So like this tunnel, it has these reflecting lights. You may need to make some slight adjustments in here for kind of, it's like there's a max characters in the prompt in the chat. So reference footage orbit of the tunnel from every angle is really the piece that I can kind of say. And then I sort of go starting here. The camera does this, and then name objects, right? So object 1 was the lights, object 2 was the ground, object 3 was the wall, right? Naming the wall is going to be important to kind of get an orbit to happen. But you could obviously include more. And then what happens at the end, completing the orbit, was sort of the last little piece. And so if you want to copy and paste and sort of fill that out like a Mad Libs template, feel free. It's just there's like max characters in the YouTube chat. So it's just a little bit tough. But not that I'm 100% sure this will exactly work. I think tunnels do draw the eye to Midjourney a little bit, right? So it's like it loves to go down a tunnel. And so we have to sort of work a little harder to get the side of the tunnel into vision. Obviously, this is working a little bit, but not 100% of the time, it seems. And so, yeah, like I think this orbit will be improved from the last one, will be improved from what we had, but it still may not go all the way. We may be able to do something with a starting frame and an ending frame. I also find that like squares are just smarter in Midjourney for whatever reason. I'm not sure why, but if you have a scene that is sort of at the, I ran out of fast hours. Oh no, I've generated too many videos. I get more in 2 days, but that might be the end of the Midjourney side of my live stream. Come back on the 3rd. Big sad. Let's see. So we can play a little bit with... Yeah, so we're getting a little bit of orbit, but yeah, I'm sort of out of Midjourney for now, and I don't really want to pull up my payment method on stream. I guess I could disappear for a little bit and buy some more, but let's just see if I can. Let's just play with some things from my last video in Gemini because I think it's interesting. To be able to say, hey, could you put this character in a animated city scene? Should probably turn on Nano Banana, but I think it should default to using it. Not bad. And so the fact that we have a bunch of like images that we've kind of gotten out of it, right? So we can kind of say, hey, now this pose in front of a fountain in the same city but new place. Now make it look like he's fighting a scary robot much larger than him. Right, so we sort of have this control of, hey, I'm working with a character and I want this. It may be easier if you just want a starting frame and ending frame, Craig. If you could kind of say, hey, this is my tunnel, and I won't be able to try it because I'm out of Midjourney hours. But one could say, hey, this is my tunnel. Did I download it? Let's open it in Midjourney and sort of grab the thing. Download. Load. Could you rotate 90 degrees so we can see the side of this tunnel as if it is straight on? Show the details of the wall. And then in Midjourney, use a starting frame and an ending frame to guide it. Don't worry about it. I have generated so much in this this time. I'm not surprised I ran out of hours eventually. I actually feel I could get more in 2 days, and I feel good that I sort of used them up. But instead of generating a video here, right, is like, hey, one could say, hey, this is my next frame. And so now I want to go from here to here and get the orbit by animating through that and then animate back to sort of finish the loop, right? And so now you kind of have that complete control and motion in the direction that you're actually looking for. And it feels like the right thing in theory. And you could sort of say, hey, make them all pink and a little brighter. And I'm going to say make all the lights pink and a little brighter. So just because I ran out of Midjourney hours, I may call it a stream here. I feel like we've definitely tried some interesting things. We played with our fox a nice little bit, and I should put my cool what's it called? My cool boat scenes into the video too. But I think we definitely did some fun things with playing around with the characters and sort of saw that we can do it with kind of any character we have in mind, right? So we can kind of do it with our fox character, and we definitely did a bunch of other of these. I went new chat a bunch of times. We did our boat and animated our fox guy a bunch of times and played with this character, and yeah, accomplished quite a bit. I did at one point have ChatGPT try to turn this fox into a whole story. So that's something that Gemini try to turn this into a whole story. They've added this kind of, I don't think it's Nano Banana because it seems more like their Imagen 4, but they use Imagen 4 to kind of build out a whole storybook based on the thing that you kind of asked for. And to be able to do that in sort of one shot is a new and impressive feature that the character is kind of consistent within. It's not the one I uploaded, which is why I don't think it's Nano Banana. I think it's generating each one kind of individually, but I found that pretty impressive. So if you finish this live stream and you're like, oh, cool, Nano Banana is cool, I wonder if maybe I want to generate a whole storybook, I recommend you kind of check that out. We only use this kind of once in the middle to make our fox a little bit smaller in the book. But before I sign off, I do want to say on tools.glibbytree.com, I built ImageRag as a way to manage sort of context and prominence, right? So the idea that you can kind of have a bunch of characters in scenes and then work those scenes into places. So this was after refining. You saw this in my latest video about like working through characters here, but after refining each of these images, you're kind of able to put them together in Midjourney so that you can make changes all at once and keep consistency. And it's really quite an impressive thing. So yeah, I think, Craig, that will be a pretty good strategy for you at the end there. But if anyone's interested in ImageRag, check out my last couple videos, and it's something that I sell and do. So if I'm trying to kind of promote something at the end here, that's kind of what it'll be. So my video about like highly specific revisions, we'll kind of go through the essence of kind of what we did to sort of build a complex city scene after a simple thing. And my video about highly consistent characters, the latest one about using Midjourney video to build assets, to build scenes, will cover a lot of what we did today. And now that we can integrate Nano Banana, I think those workflows are even more powerful. So thank you all so much. So glad to see you here. So glad we hit 40 likes on the live stream while we were here. 37 of you are still hanging out. So grateful to have you here. And I am going to click sign off now. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Lucas. Thanks, Craig and Lewis and Lewis spelled differently, and everyone else who chatted today, Captain and Michael, and yeah, everyone here. Really appreciated you all, and take care. All right. Bye now.